Good afternoon. I want to thank you to the eighth of our 8 town halls here at the Department of Human Services. This afternoon, I have with me Tony Kirst, the Director of our Division of Youth Services. Glad to have you with us, Tony.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking, obviously, today about our Division of Youth Services. Now, we have received just a few questions in advance, and certainly, if you have questions during our town hall, feel free to post those questions, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. We ask you, as in the past weeks, make sure your questions are on the topic for today, which is the Division of Youth Services. So, Tony, let's talk a little bit about, just kind of give our audience a little bit about what all is included in the Division of Youth Services. Just an overview of what that division involves.
So an overview of the Division of Youth Services is we are split into 2 different areas. So we have the community side, which is responsible for probation and aftercare of students that are in the courts. And then we have Oakley Youth Development Center. And so at Oakley Youth Development Center, for those kids that are court ordered, and they'll spend time there, and we'll try to provide rehabilitative services for them, educational service, counseling. So those are the 2 areas, distinct areas of Division of Youth Services.
Okay. So we have the community side, and then we have Oakley Youth Development Center.
Correct.
Now, for folks who may not be as familiar with Oakley, that's a state facility, is that right?
State operated facility.
And it's out in the Raymond area?
Raymond area, and it's for youth between the ages of 10 and 17.
Okay. And tell our listeners, tell this audience a little bit about, there's also a school, a full charge, I'll call it, of school on campus.
So the way I look at Oakley is a boarding school type environment.
Okay.
So most people think of it as a correctional facility. I would like to think of it more as, and we talk about it being more of a therapeutic rehabilitation center for juveniles,
Right.
for youth.
Right.
And of course, we have all of the things that you have. We have an educational program that run in accordance with the guidelines set forth by the Mississippi Department of Education.
All right.
We provide the 330 minutes of educational services. We have the core subject areas. We have horticulture. We have career and technical ed. All of our kids get character education. And the list goes on and on. So.
Well, what would be the age for most of the youth who are at Oakley? What's the youngest you have?
The youngest is 10,
Okay.
and we go up to 17, and you can have your 18th birthday there.
Okay.
So, and that's our age group.
So you're offering educational opportunities for all of those age groups.
All of those age groups.
You've got teachers who are
Certified.
in all of those different areas.
Certified through the Department of Education in all of those areas. English, science, math, special education. We have a special ed director out there. And so all the things that you would see in a normal school setting,
Right.
school district, you would see that at Oakley Youth Development Center.
Good. And I was out recently for a visit, and I believe one of the students was finishing up and actually graduated, got his high school degree.
He did, and we have a few that go the GED route.
Okay.
And we're proud of them. And it's not that they don't have the educational cognitive skills in order to achieve. We just have to find out what works for them.
Right.
And some of them want to be successful. We just have to find their niche.
Right.
And we individualize, even like in the public school systems. We are more of a private, school.
Sure.
But we cater and we individualize educational services to each of our kids based on their needs.
Now, I understand that your division, youth services, has a lot of job opportunities these days.
We have a host of job opportunities. Juvenile care workers, we have cafeteria staff,
Good.
Youth service counselors, teachers.
Cool.
Yes, we have
We
some
need some teachers.
We need some teachers.
Okay. What about, do you have medical staff out there?
Oh my gosh, how could I forget that? Yes, we need nurses, also we need certified nurses assistants, we need licensed practical nurses, and we need RNs. So we need
Okay.
all
And I imagine, Oakley's a pretty big facility, so you got a lot of staff just taking care of the grounds, right? Maintaining the place.
We have maintenance workers, we do need those. And again, we have a full operational cafeteria, so of course we need the cafeteria workers. And we need those to come in and help straighten up behind, so we need them too. So anything that you will find in a facility, we need, people to come and take care of our lawn. And so all of those job opportunities, and like other state workers, we have insurance.
Sure.
And so we have public retirement.
Okay.
And those are things that you won't get all over. So, take a look at Oakley and look at the state personnel website and come give us a look.
So there are going to be some job fairs coming up, I understand. And those will be posted on DHS's website?
Those will be posted. They're still in the works.
Okay.
We're looking month of April to try to have those job fairs,
Okay.
and they'll be in 2 different locations. So those will be posted, but also keep a watch on the Mississippi State Personnel Board website. All of our jobs are posted there also.
Okay. And as you said just a moment ago, all of the benefits of being a state employee, including health insurance and being a part of the public employees retirement system, all of that's included if you come to work.
All of that's included, but the most important thing is the individuals at Oakley and with the youth service community side, you have a unique opportunity to make a difference in the life of a child.
Sure.
And so that's a big, big plus. Outside of all of the other great things,
Right.
to be a positive role model for our kids.
Tell me a little bit about, you mentioned youth services counselors. Those are on the community side, right?
We have those on the community side and at Oakley.
Okay. Well, on the community side where they're working, I guess, with the youth court system,
Exactly.
what exactly do the youth services counselors, what's their role in the process, so to speak?
They work with the child and family on trying to find positive outcomes for them. They keep an eye on them. They keep an eye on their work, their schoolwork. They collaborate with the youth court to determine what are the best options for the kids. And so basically, they're like the keeper of the child.
Okay.
And so just making sure that they stay in line and do what they're supposed to do.
So it's a little oversight, but it's also a supportive role as well.
Exactly.
Oh, great.
For the child and the family.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Now, I have some notes here about the transition, if you will, the evolution from a correctional environment. And a lot of people still think of Oakley as, it was known for years as Oakley Training School. But now it's known as Oakley Youth Development Center. And I like what I heard you say once to some of the youth there, that this is an opportunity. Being at Oakley is an opportunity for them to kind of get their lives turned around. So talk to me a little bit about this evolution from what I think of as kind of the cold correctional environment to more of a therapeutic setting for these youth.
So a lot of people, when you say Oakley, like they do go back and think about the training school. You see the barbed wire, so automatically your attention goes to a prison.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to take that away from that whole Oakley vibe. So I wanted people to think of it more as what it is, a youth development center. So instead of the cold walls, putting beautiful artwork up on the walls, everybody involved in student-centered functions. We now have a student advisory group like they have in all of the schools. And so what better way to make changes is to get the voice of the kids.
Right.
And so we changed from pods, they use that terminology in prisons.
It really sounds like a prison,
Yeah.
yeah.
So now we're at dorms. These are dormitories for kids. We got to keep in mind that these are, at the end of the day, these are children.
Right.
And so if everything is focused on them, and so we have a beautification project. We have the kids more involved in like Christmas and things. Everything, and we roll everything over to education. So we combine the two, education and what's going on in real life. And so Christmas, what are the different types of trees and things that they use for Christmas? So that's science and social studies, we bring all of that in. So again, we're trying to make it more child friendly. We're bringing more furniture into the dormitories.
Oh, okay.
Of course, we have the cells, but we're trying to make it more child-friendly.
Right.
I think that's the word, the terminology.
Okay. So, let's start kind of at the beginning. How is a youngster, you know, 15, 17-year-old, initially evaluated, so to speak, for admission to Oakland?
Okay, it starts with the youth court.
Okay.
It starts there. And if a youth court judge, along with the youth service counselor, think that it is in this child's best interest to go to Oakley, then they complete a packet. And that packet is sent to Oakley Youth Development, mental health and nursing staff, mental health and medical staff. They review the packet to make sure that cognitively an individual could benefit from the resources of Oakley. Now, if we have a child who cognitively cannot benefit, then those students are not accepted.
Right.
So with an IQ level of, I think, 70 or below,
Right.
then we do not take those individuals.
Because I assume from the name that you mentioned already, you want to see these students develop while they're
Exactly.
make some progress.
Make progress. That's the whole goal. We want them to be better than they were when we received them. We want them to want to stay with us, you know, not, but, you know, we want them to experience things that they've never experienced before. And we want kids to actually cry when it's time for them to go. And that's the type of environment that we're trying to create at the Oakland Youth Development Center these days.
So you have a complete, it sounds like, mental health, physical, academic, even, I guess if they have some vocational ideas, even a vocational aptitude assessment for them.
Based on their individual needs. And so the mental health staff is led by Dr. Green. She is absolutely wonderful. Her staff gets in there, roll up their sleeve. They have one-on-one therapy sessions. They have group sessions. We have restorative justice. Then our medical staff is top-notch. And so anything that goes wrong with the kids, you know, we'd rather be safe than sorry.
Right.
So we're telehealth, and then if telehealth say send them on, we're on our way to UMC.
Okay.
So
So initially, though, they're doing it virtually through telehealth,
right,
which during this pandemic,
Pandemic.
obviously has been used a whole lot more than in years past.
exactly. And we have been so blessed because we have not had one child to get sick during this pandemic.
Oh, that's great. So you haven't had any COVID cases?
We have not, and we've taken all the precautions. We make sure that before a child enters the grounds, they come with a negative COVID test.
Right.
Those are some things we put in place along, you know, with your blessing, that we were not going to risk anybody's health by just having kids come. So we had to put extra steps in place to ensure that we were doing what was in the best interest of the facility and the agency.
Great, great. Well, I know you have both individual and group therapy counseling opportunities there.
We do.
Talk to me a little bit about, for example, reality therapy. What's that all about?
The reality therapy is just what it says, getting kids to understand the reality of life's choices. So if you do this,
Decisions have consequences, basically.
the decisions have consequences. And based on that, we have now a parenting class that we have out there that Dr. Green developed. And so getting kids to understand the need to wait to be parents. But for those that are already parents, then what do we do? And these are some of the things that we do. This is how much it costs. And so reality therapy is just that. It's helping you understand that your choices have consequences,
Right.
good and bad.
And yeah, if you are going to become a mom or a dad, or a mom and a dad of a child, that you're taking on a lot of
A
responsibility.
lot of responsibility.
Taking on a lifetime of responsibility.
Right. And when you're 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, you don't really grasp that.
Right. Well, I know something that comes up a lot is anger management, and that's not just in the youth setting. I mean, anger management is an issue that shows up in our actual correctional system. But tell me about anger management. Is that something that's offered for youth there at Oakland?
Yes. And we We do a lot with that because a lot of our kids have built up hostility. A lot of our kids have gone through some sort of trauma.
Sure.
And so that rolls over into anger a lot of times. And so the one-on-one therapy is good with that. And then when they can branch out and be with others and start talking about issues, and that's what the whole anger management process does. And it develops you into how to deal with your anger.
Right.
So rather than reacting this way, picking up a crate and popping somebody in the head, then you sit down and you talk it out, or you ask to speak to your counselor. And so just managing it a little bit better, just trying to teach them the baby steps, the concepts of how to get there to that point where you understand, once again, that if I do this, there are consequences.
Right.
And so how do I manage my built up hostilities? But we have to dig a little bit deeper and try to find out the root cause of the anger.
Sure.
And so that's where the therapy and the additional counseling sessions may come in. We may have been doing this child twice a week, then we may increase that to every day until we can get him or her to manage it a little bit better.
And you mentioned, and maybe a lot of folks who are watching don't realize that a lot of the youth that we have interaction with at Oakley and in the community setting as well have been victims of trauma. And I'm sure that the approach that's taken is trauma informed, but explain a little bit about what trauma informed approaches to both the counseling as well as just the treatment of these young people is all about.
So when you're making trauma-informed decisions, you are looking at that child, the individual trauma that child has gone through. And so based on this child's record, based on the trauma that the child has gone through, then what are the needs? And then you build off of that. And so every decision you make from that point on, because the child may have gone through some type of death and may have triggers.
Right.
And so you try to figure out what are some of the triggers. And then you try to eliminate as much as possible some of the triggers. But more so, how do I, when I see these triggers or these triggers happen, how do I deal with it? How do I cope with it? Right. And so it's about making trauma-informed decisions about everything you do, how you speak to them. You know, this child may have been shouted at for all of his or her life. Right. And so they may not be able to handle that. So with this child, I may not be able to use this, I may have to. And so it's all about trauma-informed decisions based on individual needs of particular students.
And part of the whole, I'll say the whole approach is also to equip these children with some social skills and some character education as well.
Right.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. All of them are in character ed, they receive character ed, and a lot of that trauma-informed decisions, and they work hand in hand. And so how do you deal with certain things that happen in life? How do you deal with death? How do you deal with a bully? How do you deal with someone leaving? And so a lot of that is also discussed and worked on and built up within those individuals within character education also. How do you build character in different people?
And my understanding is each student, when they arrive at Oakley, they get a complete physical, complete psychological workup.
They go through hours of intake. So you have a psychological, and you have some information that's already come from the community side. You have your educational workup, and then we also have the educational records of the last school of record. We have your mental health, medical. You go through all of that again during intake. And so it's to determine where you will be placed based on your individual needs, educational services that need to be provided ASAP based on the individual needs, and whether or not we have all of the required or needed paperwork educationally that we need in order to make the right educational decisions for these kids.
Okay. And I know sadly for a lot of teenagers, suicide is always a possibility in their mind. And we do a risk assessment.
Risk assessment.
That suicide risk.
And that would determine, again, placement, and then the need for therapy. How often and what type of therapy that individual will receive.
We talked already about, being teen parents. I mean, sexual education is not a favorite topic for a lot of parents to hear about, but the sexual risk avoidance and the consequences of engaging in, intimate relations, something we have to talk to these young people about.
We have to talk to them about it because they're already exhibiting other behaviors, some drugs, some other, so that is going into some other things.
Right.
So that's why we feel it's important to talk about parenthood and sex education and some other things, because remember now, what our goal is to eliminate some of the negative things that are going on with these kids.
Right.
And so some of the negative thoughts that they're having, and to answer any questions they may have because they're curious.
Right.
And we would rather than ask us, and we tell them honestly, rather than go out and try to find out themselves and then make a mistake.
Sure. Well, now, obviously, this last year, we've all been dealing with the pandemic, but you said earlier that you haven't had a positive COVID test among the students. Have you continued to or restarted receiving students at Oakley Youth Development Center during this last 6
Yes,
months?
I think we started back maybe September, October, receiving new students in, but we still have the same guidelines.
Sure.
Even today, we still have the same guidelines. We're getting in some this week. They still have to come to us with a negative COVID test. So we're still receiving kids, and I think within the last 2 weeks we've taken in four to 6 kids, and I know we have packets waiting that we're reviewing at this time.
Right. Okay. And they can be referred, I guess, by youth court judges anywhere in the state.
Anywhere in the state, yes.
I think we're about at the place where we probably could take a few questions. I wanted to mention, we said earlier the job fair, and the job fair, I believe, is scheduled for Thursday. One is scheduled for Thursday, April 1st, from 9 to 1 at Copiah County, at the Copiah County Safe Room in Hazelhurst, Mississippi. And there's another one scheduled for Thursday, April the 18th, out at Oakley Youth Development Center from 9 to 1. So if you're interested in hearing more about the jobs that are available, certainly if you're interested in applying for one of those, take advantage of the job fairs. Come on out and hear about what opportunities we have at Oakley. Well, one of the questions we had was, and I think you've already answered it, but we'll talk about it again just briefly. Does a youth, I like that word better than juvenile, does a youth have to go to court to be admitted to Oakley?
Yes, all of the commitments to Oakley are court ordered.
Okay.
So in other words, you can't call as a parent and say, my child did something over the weekend, can we drop them?
Right. Don't do any drop-offs.
Don't drop them.
Okay. Now, here's a question, and I know we have talked about this here, within the agency, and it's a little bit of a sore subject, I guess. The question is, are there any youth programs in the community to prevent youth from becoming delinquent?
That's an ongoing conversation, and you're correct. We've had that conversation ourselves, and we're still pursuing funding to have the Adolescent Opportunity Program reestablished. But we're also working across state agencies to develop a resource by county.
Right.
So individuals would know what resources are in each county. But people don't fail to realize what important extracurriculars go on in the individual school districts.
Okay.
And that is the greatest preventive measure that they could use.
Right. One of the questions that I get from time to time, because there's a little bit of misunderstanding about the overlap or lack of overlap. Does a child who's involved in the foster care, does your division of youth services have any involvement or oversight of children who are in the foster care system?
Now, we do get students who are in care at Oakley.
Okay.
If that's answered,
Okay.
yes.
So they can still be in the foster care system, be referred to Oakley and come under the Division of Youth Services
Yes.
here,
Yes.
even though Child Protection Services would be managing the foster care teaching.
Right, they would be parent of contact, basically.
Right, okay,
Although Oakley would take over as the parent at that time and make all the decisions, we still collaborate with, CPS like we would the parents.
right, okay. We have another question about what is done to prevent bullying and harassment at Oakley.
Like I said, we have a huge intake process, and during that intake process, we go over all the guidelines that, students need to know while at Oakley. We talk about what, if bullying occurs, what you need to do. We have grievance boxes throughout the campus where you can drop a note in. During the time of the pandemic, the 6 feet separation. So if, we have, see that, then of course we're going to go in and see what's going on. We have a youth service counselor in each dorm. We have juvenile care workers that are there on site, so you have a lot of eyes. And then we have someone that's hired to do nothing but sit and review the cameras of what's going on within the different dorms, wherever the kids are.
Okay, so there are actual cameras in Oakley,
Oh,
keeping
yes.
an eye on all of these.
Big brother is
Got it.
watching.
Now, one of the questions we had, and maybe we'll just look at a couple of these jobs, is someone's asking for information about the qualifications for the jobs that we have available. Let's take the juvenile care workers. What kinds of qualifications do we look for, and what exactly would a person be doing as a juvenile care worker?
So the juvenile care worker depends if you are a juvenile care trainee, 1, 2, or 3. And with each of those, there are different qualifications. And so to keep me from blowing, it would be easier to go to the State Personnel Board's website and pull juvenile care worker, trainee, 1, 2, or 3. And I'm sorry, I missed what was the next part of that?
What are they doing? Do they
Oh.
have direct interaction with
Yes.
the youth who are
The
there?
juvenile care workers are just that. They're the ones that are on the front line. They're the ones that actually care for the kids, walking them to and from class. They're with them going to and from lunch. And so they're there to provide the care of for those kids that's needed. So their name is exactly what they do. They care for the kids.
Okay.
Juvenile care workers, or as we like to say, youth care workers.
Right. And if a teacher is interested in applying, I assume the requirements of state licensure and certification are the same at Oakley as at any other school?
Any other school, exactly.
Okay.
They can go online, State Personnel Board website, or they can call and talk to Dr. Dennis Daniels or Dr. Keith Gray at the Oakley Youth Development Center.
Okay. And nurses, practical nurses or RNs, again, as long as they're licensed by the state, they're eligible to apply.
Eligible to apply.
Okay. We have a question from someone asking about how to become a guardian ad litem. How does somebody do? Well, let's first talk about what is a guardian ad litem?
The guardian ad litem is basically the individual that is going to court and doing what's in the best interest of that particular child.
Okay.
So, and my
That's a little beyond
Yes.
really what your division does.
Mhm.
Okay.
we don't certify or have guardian ad litems at Oakley.
Those are appointed by the court.
Those are appointed by the courts.
Right. Okay. All right. And I wanted to give you an opportunity, because I see we're getting close to finishing up our time, to just share with our audience anything we haven't touched on yet that you think would be helpful for them to know about the Division of Youth Services.
I think the most important thing to know is that, the mission of the Mississippi Department of Human Services is to offer Mississippians, young and old, tangible help today to create hope for a better tomorrow. So we have the young. And so this is a unique opportunity, like I said, to come in and help us breathe hope into these kids, whether it's on the community side, as a clerk typist or a youth service counselor, or whether it's on the Oakley side as a juvenile care worker. These kids need us, and I think it would be a great opportunity to come and join our team and to help us make a difference as we move towards what you always say, move towards that level of excellence. And so, new day, new Oakley, new community services. So, and plus, don't forget that we have state retirement and state insurance. I'm gonna keep plugging that in.
Sure, sure. Well, and I like what you say about hope, because as I shared with the group just yesterday, hope can be infectious. If these young people see hopeful care workers caring for them, they start to get a little hope themselves, and that's what we want them to do. We want them to be sad when they leave us, but we want them to be hopeful about where they're headed.
Exactly, and that's the whole goal, is to make them better than they were when we received them, and breathe that hope back into them.
Great. Tony, I appreciate your time. Appreciate those of you who've joined us. This is the last of our town halls for now. And we'll post on our website if we decide to have some similar events like this in days ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you.